Nobody saw this moment coming, and when it finally surfaced, the internet didn't just react, it paused. For years, T.I. had been considered untouchable, an emblem of hip-hop authority whose presence demanded dominance, confrontation, and control. He had never been known as the soft one, the emotional one, or the man you expected to see vulnerable. And yet, in a single, quiet moment, that entire image cracked wide open, leaving fans, critics, and casual observers alike in stunned disbelief. There was no album rollout, no public feud, no scandal exploding across headlines. There was only a single photograph, quietly posted to social media, and in its stillness, it detonated emotionally. It was T.I. standing still, holding a newborn child in his arms, without caption, without explanation, without any direction for the audience on how to feel. The silence of that moment was deafening, and in it, the armor of a public persona began to fall away. The photograph was simple, almost painfully so. There was no dramatic lighting, no luxury attire, no studio backdrop or calculated branding. There was only T.I., whose image had been built on confrontation and control, standing with his posture softened, his eyes lowered, and the grip on this child protective rather than authoritative. For the first time in the public eye, the toughness that had defined him for decades was gone. Fans weren't just seeing a rapper holding a baby, they were seeing a man confronting time, legacy, and a version of himself that had been completely private until that moment. The power of the image didn't come from performance or spectacle, it came from its honesty. It was raw, quiet, unfiltered reality placed directly in front of millions of people, challenging them to feel without guidance, to interpret without a script, and to confront a vulnerability they had never associated with T.I. before. The reaction was immediate. Social media flooded with disbelief, admiration, and introspection. Comments varied from "I've never seen him like this" to reflections on peace, emotion, and intimacy. Many admitted the image felt almost intrusive, like witnessing a private moment that had never been intended for public consumption. People marveled at the contrast between the T.I. they had known and the man in the photograph. And in that contrast, the image achieved a rare phenomenon. It demanded attention not through spectacle, but through human truth. This was not celebrity content, it was human content. It made the audience pause and reflect on something more significant than gossip, more lasting than viral content. It made them consider the passage of time, the nature of legacy, and the universality of family milestones. Then came the revelation that deepened the emotional weight of the moment. The child in T.I.'s arms was not just any baby, it belonged to his daughter, Deyjah Harris. Deyjah had grown up in the glare of public scrutiny, a life overshadowed by her father's fame and the relentless commentary that came with it. Yet she had somehow chosen an almost radical path in celebrity culture. She had chosen silence. No viral pregnancy reveal, no attention-seeking posts, no curated social media narrative. She had entered motherhood quietly, and the public only discovered it after the fact, a subtle but powerful assertion of control over her life. For fans, the realization was stunning. The daughter of one of hip-hop's most outspoken figures had rewritten the rules entirely, asserting autonomy in a world that constantly demands performance for women in the spotlight. And for T.I., this was more than just a public milestone. It was a private moment of witnessing his child step into an entirely new role, a role he could no longer guide or control, a role that redefined the relationship between father and daughter in the most intimate way imaginable. The photograph also triggered a sense of temporal dislocation for fans. Childhood clips of Deyjah resurfaced, old interviews with T.I. were revisited, and suddenly years seemed to collapse into a single emotional frame. One moment, Deyjah had been a child under her father's careful watch. The next, she had become a mother, and T.I. had become a grandfather, confronting the inevitable passage of time, a reality he could not control or reverse. That compression of generations was what made the moment universally relatable. Parents, grandparents, even those far removed from celebrity culture found themselves staring longer than they expected, drawn into a reflection of their own experiences. The first time they held a child, the moment they realized their own parents were no longer in control, the quiet transformations that shift life irrevocably. The photograph became a mirror reflecting the human experience of change, legacy, and evolution in a way that transcended T.I.'s celebrity and connected directly to the core of shared human emotion. The attention slowly shifted from T.I. to Deyjah herself. For years, the public had assumed they understood her life. They did not. Her choice to remain private and step away from spectacle was not weakness. It was deliberate, controlled, and radical in its simplicity. She had chosen her own narrative, one that did not require validation, announcement, or audience approval. And when the image emerged, it whispered rather than shouted, conveying a depth of meaning that no press release could ever manufacture. The photograph became symbolic, a statement about autonomy, privacy, and the quiet power of personal evolution. T.I. was not performing, Deyjah was not seeking attention, and yet together they communicated something far greater, a redefinition of legacy that valued authenticity over performance, presence over spectacle, and connection over control. The impact of this single moment went beyond family dynamics. It dismantled years of public speculation. For more than 4 years, T.I.'s relationship with Deyjah had been dissected online, with fans building theories, questioning closeness, and commenting on perceived distance. Yet the photograph quietly, powerfully, and permanently reshaped that narrative. Without speaking a single word, without defending himself, without staging any explanation, T.I. demonstrated trust, comfort, and presence, the very qualities that many had questioned. In an instant, the photo reframed how the public viewed his words about family, responsibility, and growth. Statements that once sounded like generic interviews suddenly became evidence of a deeply personal philosophy in action. The authenticity of that moment struck at the core of human experience, forcing the public to recognize that T.I. was not defined solely by his public persona, but by the private truths that had always existed alongside it. The photograph also sparked a broader conversation about masculinity, legacy, and the complexity of growth. T.I. had long been associated with control, authority, and toughness, qualities traditionally celebrated in hip-hop culture and public life. But in that single image, the public saw a new form of strength emerge: gentleness, patience, and emotional presence. It challenged assumptions about what it meant to be a man in the spotlight, especially one whose entire career had been defined by dominance and bravado. And it did so without confrontation, without spectacle, without any of the usual dramatics. The image did not just humanize T.I., it invited reflection on the evolving nature of fatherhood, the fragility of legacy, and the quiet power inherent in being present for moments that cannot be controlled, scripted, or commodified. What made this moment resonate so deeply was its universality. It reminded parents of the weight of their responsibility, grandparents of the cyclical nature of life, and even individuals without children of the passage of time and the inevitability of change. Social media, usually a place of constant noise and outrage, slowed. Arguments paused, debates faded. For a fleeting moment, people were not performing for likes or engagement. They were reflecting, they were feeling. And in that reflection, the photograph became something more than a family milestone or celebrity content. It became a shared human experience, one that transcended fame and forced a collective pause to consider the gravity of growth, transformation, and relational continuity. Deyjah's transformation was just as significant as as T.I.'s. She had stepped into motherhood quietly, decisively, and on her own terms. The public had long defined her in relation to her father, but in that image, she became a figure of agency, autonomy, and self-determination. She was no longer simply T.I.'s daughter. She was a mother, a woman carving her own path, a person whose life choices were hers to make. Watching her father witness this transformation added depth to the narrative, highlighting not only his growth as a parent and grandfather, but also the evolution of a relationship built on trust, love, and mutual respect. The photograph communicated what words could not, that legacy is not simply inherited, it is cultivated, observed, and experienced in the quiet milestones of life. However, the photo itself was simple, almost deceptively so. T.I. stood still, holding the tiny child in his arms, his eyes lowered, his expression soft and contemplative. The toughness, the bravado, the aura of dominance that had defined his public persona for decades, it was gone. In its place was something fragile, raw, and profoundly human. His grip on the baby wasn't forceful or performative, it was protective, tender and deliberate, as though he were silently acknowledging the weight of the moment and the responsibility of a new chapter in life. Fans didn't just see a rapper holding a baby, they saw a man confronting time, legacy, and a version of himself the world had never been allowed to witness. And the silence of the photograph amplified its power. There was no music, no staged lighting, no commentary, only the quiet, undeniable reality of life as it had unfolded in that private moment. It was a reminder that beyond fame, beyond image, and beyond the public persona, even icons are human, capable of tenderness, reflection, and awe in the face of life's milestones. The response from fans and the wider public was instantaneous. Comments flooded in almost immediately, echoing the same sentiment. People had never seen T.I. like this before. Some described a sense of peace radiating from his expression. Others spoke of barely contained emotion, a vulnerability that was rarely captured on camera. Many admitted that the image felt intensely intimate, almost like an intrusion into a private moment that had been shared against the usual boundaries of celebrity. But here's the most remarkable part. The photograph wasn't staged. There were no designer outfits, no professional lighting, no branding, no attempt to craft a narrative for social media. It was private, yet profoundly public in its reach, and the lack of explanation only amplified its emotional resonance. Viewers were left asking themselves questions that couldn't be answered with a simple caption. Why now? Why share this? Why did this quiet moment feel more powerful than countless headlines, music releases, and carefully curated public appearances? And then, as people began to process what they were seeing, the story revealed its deeper layers. The newborn wasn't just any baby, it was the child of Deyjah Harris, T.I.'s daughter. Deyjah had grown up under the constant scrutiny of cameras, headlines, and public expectations, yet she had chosen a path that few celebrity children dared to follow: privacy. While the world assumed it knew her story, Deyjah had carefully cultivated silence, keeping her personal milestones out of the spotlight and away from public commentary. So when the photo of her newborn surfaced, it caught everyone off guard. There had been no viral pregnancy reveal, no staged social media posts, no attempts to command attention. Motherhood had entered her life quietly, without spectacle or fanfare. And when the public finally saw the moment, it wasn't Deyjah presenting it, it was her father, T.I., capturing and sharing it in a way that emphasized presence, love, and trust over performance or public approval. That detail alone made viewers pause, forcing them to recognize that this wasn't a publicity stunt. It was an intimate, generational shift, observed through the eyes of someone who had spent decades in the public eye, yet rarely revealed the emotional depths of his own life. For years, T.I. and Deyjah's relationship had been a topic of public speculation. Comment sections were filled with assumptions, criticisms, and debates about closeness, distance, and emotional connection. Some fans called their bond complicated, others suggested it was distant or strained, yet this single photograph quietly dismantled those assumptions. Without saying a word, T.I. demonstrated trust, comfort, and emotional presence, qualities that had rarely been visible to the public. People began revisiting old interviews, rediscovering clips and moments where T.I. spoke about family, responsibility, and fatherhood. Statements that had once seemed abstract or performative suddenly took on real meaning. They became evidence of a philosophy lived quietly, deliberately, and consistently over time. And for many, the photograph became a mirror, reflecting their own experiences, their own families, and their own relationships. The moment was not just about celebrity, it was about growth, time, and the universal complexities of parenthood and family bonds. What made this story resonate on a deeper level was how relatable it became. Parents, grandparents, and even those with no direct connection to celebrity culture found themselves staring at the photograph longer than expected. It reminded them of their own first encounters with children, the quiet moments when life shifted irrevocably, and the transformations that unfold without warning. Social media, usually a space dominated by outrage, debate, and spectacle, slowed. For a fleeting moment, people weren't posting for likes or arguments, they were feeling. The image became more than viral content, it became a touchstone, a reminder that even in the lives of the famous, the milestones of life are deeply universal. In its quiet authenticity, the photo captured the awe, responsibility, and love that accompany generational change, reminding everyone watching that these moments transcend celebrity and speak directly to the human experience. As the photograph circulated, attention slowly shifted from T.I. to Deyjah Harris. People began realizing that her life had been far more layered than the public ever suspected. Growing up surrounded by cameras, expectations, and scrutiny, Deyjah had done something rare. She had stepped away from the noise, choosing privacy over spectacle. She had taken ownership of her personal journey, and her pregnancy, motherhood, and transition into parenthood occurred quietly, on her terms. When the photograph surfaced, it was through her father's eyes, not hers, highlighting the emotional depth of witnessing a child step into a new role. It wasn't about seeking attention, it was about presence, trust, and familial love. This perspective shifted the narrative entirely, turning a simple family photograph into a meditation on autonomy, parenthood, and the subtle, profound power of observing life unfold without interference or performance. For fans, seeing T.I. in this vulnerable state was both unexpected and transformative. The public had long associated him with authority, toughness, and control. But in this photograph, he was soft, present, and deeply human. Some viewers struggled with the unfamiliarity, unsure how to respond to this side of a man they had long perceived as untouchable. Others praised him for showing emotional depth, a side rarely seen in the public eye. That ambiguity only strengthened the impact of the moment. When a public figure defies expectations, it commands attention. And gradually, it became clear that the moment wasn't just about T.I. It was about life moving forward, time passing, and witnessing the transformation of both father and daughter in real time. Fans began sharing memories of Deyjah as a child, reflecting on their own families, and even contemplating their own roles as parents, grandparents, or future caregivers. The photograph transcended celebrity culture, becoming a shared human experience that reminded everyone watching that life's milestones affect all of us, regardless of status or fame. This moment quietly redefined T.I.'s public image. He didn't defend himself, explain himself, or craft a narrative for social media. He simply existed in that photograph, and that authenticity altered perception. Respect for him grew among fans who saw the depth of his emotions. Others finally understood why family had always been central to his life, and why so many of his past statements about responsibility and parenthood carried weight. And as the initial reactions settled, a larger question emerged. What did this moment mean for the future? Was it a pause in a busy life, or the start of a deeper, transformative chapter? Suddenly, legacy was no longer an abstract concept. It became tangible, embodied in the presence of a father watching his daughter embrace motherhood, in the protective yet gentle hands of a grandfather cradling a newborn. The image reminded viewers that life continues, passing from one generation to the next, with love, care, and intentionality shaping what is carried forward. Perhaps the most extraordinary aspect of the photograph was its restraint. It did not shout, it did not demand attention. There was no publicity strategy, no viral marketing, no curated narrative. Its power came entirely from its honesty. By existing, unmediated and unfiltered, the photograph reshaped public perception in a way that no explanation, interview, or staged moment could. It softened criticism, recontextualized past statements, and forced viewers to confront the reality that people evolve, relationships deepen, and legacy is built through presence rather than spectacle. In this quiet, unassuming way, the image conveyed lessons about time, growth, and the enduring power of family that resonated far beyond the boundaries of celebrity culture. In the end, no explanation was needed. A father watching his daughter become a mother. A man realizing his legacy was no longer theoretical, but living, fragile, and tangible. A public figure stepping into a role that no award show, interview, or headline could validate. That of a grandfather, of a witness, of a participant in life's inevitable transitions. The photograph became more than a single moment. It became a symbol of the human experience, of trust, of love, of growth, and of the quiet, relentless passage of time. It reminded viewers that life is not measured in public accolades, viral moments, or social media attention. It is measured in transitions, in milestones, in relationships that endure beyond spectacle and performance. And in that realization, T.I., Deyjah, and the family they represent offered the world something rare, a glimpse of humanity, unfiltered, unmanufactured, and undeniably profound. This was never about erasing the past or redefining public image. It was about contextualizing growth, recognizing evolution, and witnessing the quiet power of presence. In that single photograph, T.I. became more than a rapper, more than a celebrity, more than a public figure. He became a man experiencing the depth of human life in real time, witnessing the unfolding of legacy and learning the quiet, transformative lessons that only time, family, and love can teach. Deyjah, in stepping into motherhood without spectacle or fanfare, reaffirmed the power of autonomy, resilience, and quiet strength. And together, in that frozen frame, they reshaped how the world perceives authority, vulnerability, and the true meaning of legacy. Life, as it always does, continued forward, and in its quiet passage, something profoundly real and lasting emerged. One image, unassuming and silent, became a chapter that will never be forgotten.